What's up everyone, Developer Gus here. Today we're diving into CSS classes, and trust me, that is going to change everything. No more styling every single element the same way. We're about to get super specific with our designs. So what are CSS classes anyway? Think of CSS classes like labels you can stick on your HTML elements. Instead of making all paragraphs red, you can make just the ones you want red by giving them a special class name. Here's the magic. You get to name your classes whatever you want. Want a class called super cold text? Go for it. Want banana yellow? Why not? So let's start writing your first CSS class. Let's start with something simple. So I've removed everything from my styles.css file. And in my index.html file, all I have is the link to that styles.css file. So let's go to the styles.css file. I'm going to write a class. You start with a dot, then the name, red-text. And I'm just going to give it a property of color with a value red, right? So you see that dot I wrote at the beginning? Zoom in. That dot tells CSS, hey, this is a class. Always use the dot in your CSS file. Now in my index.html file, I'm going to write something, a paragraph tag. Okay, I'm going to give it a class attribute with the value of red text. I'm going to just hit tab as I recommended this text and then close the paragraph tag. So as you can notice in my preview browser I have here inside of Visual Studio Code, and like I've already said in my last videos, it's the live preview extension of Visual Studio Code. So as you can see in the browser, the paragraph tag text is now a color red. Okay, so how we were able to provide that red text CSS class was by first writing the class attribute equal to with the value of red-text inside of the quotes, because we had written the CSS class first, or you can do it the other way around if you already have a name for a CSS class you want to make, and then go back to the styles.css file, write the selector, which is a class selector, and the property and values. So we save both files, and you can check your own browser. You see red text, the red paragraph text. Only that specific paragraph is red, not every paragraph on your page. So if we were to copy and paste this, remove the CSS class, it's not going to have that red color, obviously, because it doesn't contain the class that we had first made, our CSS file. So why don't we add more classes inside of our styles.css file? I'm going to write another one called yellow BG representing background dash text. You don't want to make your class names too long. Just yeah, you want to always take into account, you don't want to write classes that have a name that's way too long. It just doesn't help at all. With the background property of yellow, and inside of our index.html file, to the second paragraph, I want to write the class attribute with yellow big text, yellow background text, excuse me. And now you got one paragraph red and one with a yellow background. Different styles, same HTML element, because they are both using the paragraph element. And that's the power of classes. So here's where it gets really fun. You can use multiple classes on the same element. So if we were to write, you add a space from the first class you wrote, inside of the class attribute, you had a space to write the second class. So you write red dash text. And now, not only is the second paragraph text, not only does it have a yellow background, but it also has a red text because we added now this red text class. So two classes working together. So let's add some images as well. I'm gonna add more here. I'm gonna add a black image class selector, border 5 pixels, dotted black. Another CSS selector called yellow image, border 25 pixels, solid yellow. With another CSS property of border radius of 50%. And the last CSS selector will be red image, border 15 pixels, double border style with a color of red. Okay, now we go to our index.html file, and I'm going to add several images. Okay, it's going to be the same image, but with different class selectors. Obviously, I'm going to write images. We go into my images folder, small profile JPEG file. Let's not forget the alternate text property, attribute, Lamborghini black, because we're describing a car, the image I mean, which in this case is a Lamborghini black sports car. And I'm gonna give it a class CSS selector of black image. There we go. So that's the image. Let me open this in my browser. I'm gonna open this index.html file in my browser so you can see it more clearly. Or you know what? Let's go over here. I'm gonna select all the images. I'm gonna give them. There's no need to write height auto. I don't know why I did that. Or that was GitHub Copilot, which I use. Max width 200 pixels, and always make images 100% width to make them responsive. I'm gonna copy and paste this 2 times. I'm gonna change this second image to have a class of yellow dash image, and the last one to red. As you can see, we've added different images. We made sure all the images have a width of 100% and a max width of 200 pixels. But for the first image, we added the black dash image class selector, the second one, the yellow image class selector, and the last one, the red dash image class selector. So before CSS classes, if you wanted different styles for different elements, you were stuck. With classes, you can have some paragraphs with red text, some with yellow backgrounds, some with both, some with completely different fonts, whatever you can imagine. And this same applies to any element, really. Classes give you total control over individual elements while keeping your code organized. Some pro tips I would recommend is to name your classes something that makes sense, like warning text, right? If you're going to be always providing a certain color, a certain background, any kind of CSS property and values you want to, make sure to name your classes something that makes sense, okay? Instead of red text. Red text doesn't really mean anything. It's just, all it says is going to be red text, right? You want your classes to actually make sense. The name, I mean. You can use multiple classes on any element like I showed you over here. Like for the paragraph, I mean. You have the red text and yellow background text classes. Classes work on any HTML element, paragraphs, images, divs, headings, whatever. Some CSS properties only work on certain elements. You can't change a font color on an image, obviously. This is not gonna work. Like font size 20 pixels, it's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna do anything at all, right, to this image. So classes are just the beginning. Next time we'll learn about CSS IDs, which are like classes, but with some special superpowers for unique elements. So start experimenting with your own classes. Try making a class from green text or images with thick purple borders. Whatever you want sounds fun. CSS is all about playing around and seeing what looks cool.